Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell. Brought to you by...
Coordinating information on multiple signs and displays can be a big hassle. SDD presents Kiwi Sign, a digital signage controller that is not only easy to use, but cost effective. Imagine being able to control all your digital signage from one easy dashboard, whether from your phone, tablet, or computer, to anywhere in the world. It even works with your existing signs and displays. SDD-US.com, SDD-US.com. All right, it's time once again for another edition of Music Night at the Majestic. With us, Mandy Barnett. Mandy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. You have got such an amazing body of work. And, when we told people that we were going to be recording the show, we got a whole slew of questions, and we were able to narrow it down to 5. So we will get to those later in the show. Some of them you may have been asked before. Some of them you may not. But hopefully we won't bore you with any of them.
I doubt that.
Well, tell you what, why don't you let everybody know I know you got started singing very young. So why don't you give everybody a quick background?
Well, I've been singing since God was a boy. And no, I started singing when I was 5 years old. And singing in church and political rallies and you name it. And so I've been doing it for a long time and have loved every minute of it. There was never a moment that I thought I wouldn't be a singer. Just something I knew I would always do.
Well, I mean, it's clearly this is something you were born to do, because you are able to channel all the qualities of a songstress, for lack of a better description. Vocalist, I don't think singer gives quite enough credit to somebody who has your range and your ability to work in so many different styles of music and sound comfortable in all of them.
Well, singers kind of get a bad rap these days because, you get the, oh, well, she doesn't write her own songs and that kind of thing. But, the singers or songstresses that I grew up listening to didn't write their own songs. Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, people like that, Patsy Cline, Linda Ronstadt. So I grew up on that era of singers who were interpreters of songs. And a lot of times they would record the same material. But, every rendition was different because every person's going to bring a different thing to the table. I'm going to bring my thing to the table with my experiences and life experiences, which is something that is unique only to me. And so so I think that makes a big difference.
Well, I was going to say that the thing is even when you do a version of a song that everybody knows, you bring something different to it, to where it is indelibly Mandy. And that uniqueness, and that's what it actually kind of ties in with one of the questions that we received. And because John in South Carolina asked, how did you come to have so many songs on movie soundtracks? Because on movie soundtracks, you seem to do a lot of 60s standards.
Well, when you think about it, a lot of the movies and commercials use the oldies. So it was just there was a time when I was working with Sire Records. They were doing a lot of production work, and just timing and connections, and I think a lot of music supervisors are looking for songs from that era.
Yeah, is there any chance that there would be, because you've got songs on the election soundtrack, on Space Cowboys, Walking the Moon, so many others, Traveler. Unfortunately, your fans can't get them all in one place. Is there any chance that there'd ever be a CD with a collection of all your soundtrack songs?
I would think at some point maybe Warner Brothers will we'll license some of those as time goes on. So hopefully that will happen.
Yeah, 'cause that'd be really nice because you've got some really nice versions.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure what's available on for downloads. I know some of them are, but it would be nice to be able to get them all in one place. I'd say as time goes on, that'll happen.
Well, especially for us, old school people who want that tangible disc, whether it be vinyl or 4.5 inches of plastic or whatever.
Yeah, that's one thing. I'm not sure that's gonna be a thing in the coming years. Who knows? But I'm with you. I love the CD, but I also love my Spotify and being able to get the instant gratification. So I like both.
Yeah, exactly. The what I miss on doing on downloads is you don't have that emotional tie
Mhm.
to it to where you have it and you have the great album cover art, and you don't have the liner notes, and you don't have the in some cases the lyrics
Right,
in there to where you can follow along,
right.
and you miss that part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to go out of your way to find out the story behind the album. And there usually is a reason.
Yeah. Well, talk about stories behind albums. Let's talk about your debut album, which we have right here on the wall. Uh, Tell us, after your time, obviously, I think probably most folks know about, Always Patsy Cline and your time, doing that. Uh, I'm going to guess that's what was one of the main things that led to getting your initial record deal.
Yes, yes, it was. And Kyle Lenning signed me to Asylum Records, and it was a great opportunity, and I was able to actually chart on the Billboard charts, and we were at the time we were going after a little more commercial radio success, but doing it in a way that would be also artistically satisfying to me.
Well, and that's the best way I would describe that album is you are able to keep one foot in both camps, if you will.
Yes.
Now that's all right with me was a fantastic record. Uh, Video is very popular. Uh, then you had that album. You had songs from Jim Lauderdale on there. I mean, when you go through it, I mean, it was just an excellent piece. Now, how active of a role did you have in choosing the songs for that album?
Oh, a big role. Yeah, big role. I worked. I had a great A&R person. Her name was Kara Ross, and she and we got along great. She was from Texas, and she really got me. And we scoured Nashville looking for those songs, and it was really just a great relationship. And that's what you need when you're working with a label. You have to have someone who gets you, and she did. She brought songs to the table that I liked, and so it was very easy to choose the songs because she brought quality songs to the table.
Yeah, and now you're the second album that came out in '99, I've Got a Right to Cry. That album was recently named to Rolling Stone's 10 Classic Albums of 1999. That had to feel pretty good.
It sure did. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. But Owen Bradley and I uh, picked out the songs for that album, and we spent a lot of time together. Probably about a year, just hanging out, and it wasn't all just on the record. We spent a lot of time just hanging out, getting to know each other, going to lunch, telling stories, singing random songs, just having a lot of fun, and it really just made for a great relationship and great friendship. And of course, by the time we got into the studio, we were only able to cut 4 songs before he passed away. It's like we were in the studio in October, and then in January he passed away. And this was so strange because 3 weeks before I did a live show with him. The symphony, Nashville Symphony, was honoring him, and he asked me if I would come to the symphony ball and sing a few songs with him while he and his brother Harold accompanied me, and it was really incredible. Of course, I had no idea that would be the last time I would see him again, but I just that relationship was just so great. It was just
Well,
friendship.
what's one of the stories that you remember him telling you that's really stuck with you?
Well, the thing about Owen, he was always so prepared. And he would say, hiring the band and letting them do what they do best is 50% of the job. So he would always hire musicians that he knew he could get what he wanted, and he would stay out of his way to a certain point. He would create parameters, but he never did micromanage people, and he didn't try to micromanage me. It was really interesting, but he'd create guidelines for us to work within, but he let us all be creative, and it was a very fun experience. There was a lot of artistry going on, and freedom and friendship, and it was just I felt like I was in really great hands. I was, and that it's something that I'm forever grateful. But the only thing I wish was that I could have done more with Owen. Now I ended up working with Harold for 20 years. We finished the album, and he was in my band, and we we were working together almost up until the day he died.
Yeah. Now, on I've Got a Right to Cry, one of the things that I think really makes that album unique is because you had a balance of uh, existing songs and
Mhm.
then new songs.
Yes.
The Whispering Wind, for example, that was a new song, but it sounds like it could have been recorded or was, originally recorded back, late 50s, early 60s. Now, how did that song come to be?
Owen had been talking to a guy, his name's Larry Russell Brown, and he wrote Tie a Yellow Ribbon and Knock Three Times, Sock It To Me Baby. Had a lot of success in the 70s, and he moved to Nashville and started writing with Pat McLaughlin. And so he started coming around, and no one said, well, I'm working with this young singer, and she needs some songs that are just hers. And so he had Larry write some songs for me.
Yeah, say that record is stunning because say if you didn't know that was new, you'd swear that it came from the Nashville Songbook.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's such a beautiful song.
yeah. Now, what's your favorite track on that?
It's hard to say. I love them all for different reasons. I love Mistakes. I love I've Got a Right to Cry, Whispering Wind. Um, yeah, I really I like them all. I really do. And it's an album that I will revisit every now and then. Because I don't just sit around listening to my albums, but it is good to go.
You don't have a playlist of your own stuff on your phone that you listen to nonstop?
I hit skip. It's like, okay. Um, but every now and then I'll go back and listen and think, wow, that was good. And and I was so young. I was only like 21 or 22.
Yeah. Now to jump back a little bit, what was when you look back into your debut album, what's the tracks that really stand out for you that you're partial to?
I love Planet of Love, and Now That's All Right With Me, 3 Days. I'll Just Pretend. That's another beautiful song. Costas wrote some great songs. Rainy Days. That's a great, great song. I felt like that should have been a single. But yeah, I'm very proud of both of those records, and they're available actually on Rhino distributes an album called the Platinum Collection, and they combined my debut album with I've Got a Right to Cry, so it is available.
All right. Quick story on that album. I was watching the movie 1917, the World War One drama, with my son who's 13. And at one point in there, there's a character who's singing Wayfaring Stranger.
Oh,
And I had him listen to your version from it. And he just, wow. Yeah, and he was just amazed at how much, he's like, this is just like so full of life and emotion. Whereas in the movie, it's purposely done, kind of, down,
right.
with it. And, but you impressed a 13-year-old with how you took a song that old and could make it fresh to where it was, he would listen to it.
Well, that's great. Tell him to tell his friends.
We've got him on a corner with a box of CDs. Don't worry, Mandy.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'll tell you what, then after that, you had done a couple tribute albums,
Uh-huh.
one to Patsy and one to Don Gibson. So why don't we talk about those? Now, the Patsy, obviously that was a natural choice for you.
Well, I was doing the show again, and so it made sense to go back in and do an album of all of her songs, because we were going to be playing the Ryman every night, and we could sell those CDs and sign autographs. And then it was also something that was it's been a great road album, and we reimagined some of the arrangements. Some of them are a little more of the traditional Patsy Cline way, and some of them we took a few liberties. But yes, definitely a natural thing to do because people have asked for it. And then the Don Gibson CD, I had a friendship with Don, and he and his wife Bobby were very good to me, wonderful people. And Don really wanted to do some duets with me. He'd been in poor health for a while, but he was really wanting to get into the studio and try to do some things again. And we talked about it, and then he asked me if I would ever consider doing an album of all of his songs. And I told him at some point I would love to do it. I think we probably would have gotten around to that earlier had he lived, but shortly after, around 2003, he passed away. So 2013, I was able to get the funding, because, as you know, making albums is not a very inexpensive venture. It's something that takes money, and so I was able to acquire the money to do it, the funding, and collaborated with Cracker Barrel and Concord Records and released that, and had an exclusive with Cracker Barrel for about 3 years.
Well, I'll tell you, Don was one of my favorite songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to do a show called Country Flashback,
Mm-hmm.
and we had done a spotlight episode on Don's, both the songwriting and also his recordings as well. And I was good friends with Eddie Arnold, and Eddie would ask me to send him the tapes of the show, so I would. And the week that the Don Gibson episode aired, Eddie calls me and thanked me because he just absolutely adored Don and Don's songwriting. And he goes, yeah, thank you so much. He goes, I so enjoyed listening to my friend, and glad that, that you did that, which to me was, so cool, because here's one of the nicest guys I know, praising one of my favorite songwriters, and the fact that, we included it, in the show just made me very happy. So
Don's an unsung hero. I mean, he really should get more attention than he does, but he's definitely one of my favorites, and I'm so thrilled that we got to know each other and be friends. But I love his singing. His guitar playing was incredible too. Elvis Presley, he asked who's that guy playing on those Don Gibson records, and wanted him to play on his sessions. And I don't think Don wanted to do it because it was, it was part of his sound.
Right.
Moving his wrist, and he tried to show me a few times how to do it. It was kind of fun. So he let me play those Super 400s. I played the guitar he wrote "Oh Lonesome Me" and all those hits on. So
oh wow, that had to be a thrill.
It was, yeah, it was great. We'd sit around and sing, and I would sing some of the duets he did with Dottie West, and just hang out and had a great time. I'm really, really lucky for those great memories.
Absolutely. Now, it was after that you did your Christmas album, correct?
Yes.
Now, what I thoroughly enjoyed about that, Christmas album was the fact that even though obviously it's new, it captured Christmas songs, the music, the sound that I remembered growing up. So it was like having something new from my childhood, that was now available. Tell us the story behind doing the Christmas album. Again, you produced that one, correct?
I did. Well, I produced that one and the Don Gibson one. I'd practiced on some people earlier on in my career that put faith in me to produce their records, but it was really good practice by the time I got to producing my own. So the Christmas album, I wanted to create the feeling I had growing up at my grandmother's house with the silver tinsel on the trees and the green jello, and you'd walk in and she'd be playing Burl Ives and Perry Como, and so it's more of a feeling I wanted to recapture.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm talking about, And Marshmallow World, for example, is a track where you just absolutely nailed it.
Thank you. And I'll tell you, one thing that made that album so strong too are the background vocalists. Louis Nunley, who was one of the Anita Kerr singers, he and I worked together when I was working with Owen. So he was also like he was the fill-in for the Jordanaires, but a legendary singer in his own right. He did all those vocal arrangements for me, and gosh, he was probably in his 80s when he did that, and honestly, he was on oxygen.
Oh, wow.
He was on oxygen, and I said, "Louis, can you do this?" He said, "Yeah, I think I can." So he wrote all those arrangements and sang with an oxygen tank on, and sang his butt off. And I tell you,
That's amazing.
like it in my life, but some of those old war horses like that, they can just get the job done. It was really unbelievable. But for those of you who haven't heard that record, or you have it, go back and listen to those background voices, because he did all that. He put it together.
Yeah, it's definitely, and of course, Christmas is going to be here before we know it, so it's a good time to go get yourself a copy of it and enjoy it as much as what I do. Now, Strange Conversation was an album that kind of took you into a bit of a different direction than what people were used to, and that album ended up being considered one of the best Americana albums of 2018.
Mhm.
And I got to tell you, your version of Mabel John's More Lovin' just absolutely knocks it out of the park. So, how did you come to do that record? And tell us about the recording it.
Well, there was a guy, Marco Giovino. He played drums with Robert Plant, and he told my bass player that, "Hey, I'd like to do a record with Mandy." And at that point, I wasn't sure what my next move was going to be. So I sent him a message and I said, "Hey, I hear you want to do a record with me. Basically, what do you want to do? And what's your idea of a good song? Send me some songs." Because that really was that was kind of the I wanted to see if he hit a certain standard with songs. And so he started sending me all these great songs, and I thought, wow, these are in my wheelhouse. They're completely different than anything I'd ever done before, but I can hear myself singing this. And so we hit it off, had a good rapport, and spent some time getting to know each other, because I think that's an important thing to do when you're making an album with someone.
Chemistry is the key
Yes.
to a project. Whether it's between you and the producer, you and the musicians, singers, whatever. I mean, that goes for any kind of project, but anything artistic, when you can feel that synergy, between it, it always comes out better, in my opinion.
It does. So anyway, we just started looking for songs and started putting things together. And I'm really glad, really so glad that we worked that out. It was Marco and Doug Lancio, they co-produced it. And I would like to work with them again. I think at some point we'll do something else like that. Is that good? I'm not I'm not really thinking necessarily about trying to, burn up the charts or anything like that. I want to make records that are artistically fulfilling. So I think sky's the limit as far as stylistically whatever I want to do.
Yeah. Now, tell us about your current album, A Nashville Songbook.
Well, that's a show I've been doing for quite a while. I kicked it off with the Nashville Symphony back in 2016, and I've done the show with several symphonies and performing arts centers. And Fred Mullen with Melody Place, he said this would be a great opportunity for us to do this, to record this album, and it's something that you'll always be able to sell on the road, and that show is something that I will probably always do because I think like the Great American Songbook, Nashville has its own set of standards. It's such a remarkable town. All the singers, producers, musicians, songwriters that have come out of this town really are sensational. So we have our own set of standards that are just they're great American standards.
Yeah, well, you do one song on there on that album that most people probably don't realize actually, in the States first came out of Nashville, and that was the old Brenda Lee song that people know best from Boy George.
Yes.
How did you come to choose that? Was that something that you had in the show for add a little flavor to it, and that's how it made it onto the album?
Yeah, it's a song I've been performing for years. I'd heard I knew the Boy George version first, and then I'm such a big Brenda Lee fan, and so I was just going through a lot of her lesser known material and found that and loved her version of it. And so I thought, okay, well that's the Nashville connection. It was written in England. I believe that was the writer of the song. Can't remember his name off the bat, but I think he had the first cut, and she cut it I think around 1964. It's a different song. The structure's different. The chord changes. So I thought it would add just a different dimension to the album.
Yeah, it adds a nice variety, even though if you know the history of it, it fully belongs. But if you don't, it's one of those nice things where you pop in the disc or you listen to it on whatever streaming service. All of a sudden, that song comes up. Whenever you're not familiar, don't realize a song is a remake. It kind of sets you back for a moment.
It does, and it makes people think, how is that connected to Nashville? And so they'll go out and discover the Brenda Lee version and look into the song a little bit more.
All right. Well, tell you what, why don't we get into the questions from our viewers?
Okay.
And first up, Linda in Tennessee asks, did your mama name you after the song Mandy? I know you've probably never been asked that question before.
No, she tells me I was named after Amanda Blake on Gunsmoke. My name is Amanda Carol Barnett, and I have never been called Amanda a day in my life other than when I'm at the DMV or something where I have to go by Amanda. She always called me Mandy. I'm not sure why she didn't just. I guess she felt like I needed a proper name, and then she just called me what she wanted to. But Carol, of course, in the South, people call you by your first and middle name. So I was Mandy Carol.
Well, there you go. All right. Tell you what, Jay in New York asks, what was it like singing Near You with Kim Ritchie on the Dwight Yoakam tribute album?
Oh, I love Kim Ritchie. We met somewhere and I can't remember where. And she was like, hey, man, you want to come sing on my record? And I said, sure. So it was me and her and Joy Lynn Wyatt. We sang on, I think it was her first big record. And we just started hanging out and going on hikes and doing stuff. And And so we were friends. That's how it came about. And I just think she's a heck of a gal, heck of a songwriter, guitar player, singer. She's just really, she has a beautiful, clear voice, and I'm in awe of her talent. I think she's one of the great singers of or great talents of today.
Yeah, I agree completely. All right. Next question comes from Florida, where Rita asks, who is your favorite singer outside of country music and why?
Well, I have several favorite singers, but I'll throw out Connie Francis. Connie Francis is someone that I listened to early on. Um, Now she did straddle the fence a little bit with country. She did some country songs as well as pop. But I'm a sucker for a great female singer who isn't afraid to show their vulnerability, because I think that that's what draws you in. You hear they make the most out of the lyric. They hear that lyric, and it can validate whatever you're going through in your life. And I think that's one of the things that I love too about Patsy Cline and Tammy Wynette. I think all those great singers, whether it's male or female, they have that ability to do that, to draw you in, and you hear the pain.
That's the keys. When you can feel the emotion in it, that's when the connection's made.
I think so. And if that's missing, there are a lot of great singers, but if that part isn't there, it's actually more important than being a great singer.
If the audience can't connect with you, then it's going to be hard to win them over.
Yeah, it is.
All right, let's see here. Chelsea in Michigan asks, if you were to do a covers album of all non-country songs, what would a few of them be?
Well, it would depend on which covers album, because I have a new album coming out next year, and it's all songs from the Great American Songbook. And it's with a 60-piece orchestra. So a lot of wonderful songs from the Great American Songbook. But that's a hard question. It would depend on the concept, because there's so many different styles that I'm hoping to get to. And if I tell you right now what they would be, someone else might steal the idea and do them before I can. So I don't want to let the cat out of the
Well,
bag.
we're not going to do that.
Yeah, not going to do that.
Well, tell me this: what we had a lot of questions that came in that were kind of similar, and for example, we had a lot of people asking, "What's in your music collection?"
A lot of different things. I love Edith Piaf. I love Dusty Springfield. My I have a Spotify list, and or play several Spotify playlists, and you might hear Esquivel, you might hear Wynn Stewart or Ray Price, and then it'll go into the Violent Femmes. It's kind of eclectic.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. Keeps me interested, and plus I like to walk. I'll walk for miles if I have the time, just around my neighborhood, and a good Spotify playlist will help you get the job done.
What current artists are you listening to?
What current artists? Well, how current?
You know what? That was one of the questions that we got. I'm going to say just like in the last couple of years. If
Well, I
you were to
love
look at like the last couple of years of songs of art albums that have come out.
Rumor. She's a great talent. She has a new album out called Nashville Tears. She's an English artist. I think Katie Melua is a great singer. Adele. And then there's a guy around here that I love. His name's Sam Hunter. He's a really, really great talent. But if I'm being completely honest, I probably listen more to dead people. But
You're not alone.
I'm open, so I'll have friends that'll say, "Hey, you should listen to this and check it out." And so I'm definitely open to hear new things.
Well, the other question that seemed to be one of the most common was the number of people who were wishing and hoping that someday you would do a duet album with Raul Malo.
Well, you never know. I mean, you just never know. So the stars would have to be lined up, and hopefully that will happen at some point. You just never know about these things.
Well, if it does, based on the number of questions we received, you should be in a situation where you should sell a few records. So,
Well, he certainly is a wonderful singer, and I have a lot of respect for him and wonderful taste. And I think it's great what the Mavericks are doing these days. They've been at it for so many years. They're fresh and 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 fun.
absolutely. Well, tell you what, Mandy, we're actually just a bit past our 30 minutes here. Uh, was there anything that you wanted to make sure that we include?
Just I'm on all social media platforms. I'm offering my CDs now on my website, so if you would like one signed, they're available. But you can keep track of what's going on through Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff.
All right, and we've had your website scrolling across the bottom of the screen at times throughout the show, so because people can go there, get all the information, get links to the music, and find out, and also to your social media accounts.
Wonderful.
So,
Been great being on your show. Thanks for having me.
oh well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it.
My
So. All right. Well, on that note, everybody, we're going to wrap this one up. I want to thank everybody for watching Music Night at the Majestic. Remember, you can catch us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as musicnight.net. Make sure you go to mandybarnett.com to get all the info on Mandy. Mandy, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this evening. We appreciate it.
So glad to do it. Thank you, and thank y'all for tuning in.
All right, everybody, have a good night. Thank you so much.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking. Starliner Media.